I've been very fortunate in the sense that I've been able to try and test pretty much most of the L-mount lenses that are available on the market today. So what I thought I'd do in this video is rank them using a tier list that I made. So there's all of the lenses all at the bottom, and you can probably notice that it's not every single lens that I've ever tried and tested on the channel. I've chosen the ones that I get asked about the most, since I figured that those would be the ones that you guys would be the most interested in. So let's start with the 14mm f1.4 from Sigma. So I actually f***ed up here, guys, and I've labeled it as the 14mm f1.4 from Sigma, when in actual fact I'm referring to the 14 to 24mm f2.8. I got the chance to try out this lens a little while ago now. It might have been just over a year ago, and ultimately I would say that it's a very good lens. But there's a few caveats to this lens. Firstly, it has a curved front lens element. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but if you want to attach you know, your normal filters to the front of this lens, it becomes quite, you know, cumbersome to do, because of course you have that built-in lens hood. Secondly, it's quite expensive. I mean, it's quite a spenny lens. And then third, it's just quite a heavy lens. So therefore, I'm going to put this in the meh category. And then moving on to the next lens, which is the 16 to 28 f2.8 from Sigma. Of course, it is sort of the brother to the 2870, and we'll get onto that lens in a little bit. But ultimately, it's the only sort of wide-angle zoom for the L-mount that goes down to f2.8. However, I'd say the only caveat about this lens is the fact that it stops at 28mm. I do wish it went to 35mm, because I use the 35mm focal length quite a lot in my shooting style. But yeah, so for that, I'll put it in the fantastic category for now. And guys, this can move around. This is not, you know, sort of cemented. I might be doing some changes as we go along, but yeah, it'll go there. And then moving on to the 16 to 35 f4. Let's speed this up a little bit. I'm gonna put this in the, I'm gonna put it in the would recommend for now. No, actually, no, the fantastic. Yeah, it's gonna go on the fantastic. So this lens is probably one of the sharpest and most optically perfect lenses that I've ever used for the L-mount. It has a focus clutch like all of the S Pro lenses do, and even though it is a little bit spenny, I do think that the optical quality you're getting for that is very, very worthwhile. The only reason why it's not God tier for me is because it is f4. If it was an f2.8, then it's God tier. That's that. Okay, now going on to the 18mm f1.8, which is the first of the Lumix 1.8 primes. So this one can find its way straight up to God tier. Anyone that owns the 18mm f1.8 will know just how much fun it is to use. It's a fantastic wide angle lens. It's extremely sharp. The distortion isn't too bad. Stop down to f1.8. It weighs nothing. There's literally, I mean, there's nothing to not like about the 18mm f1.8. So now the 20 to 60 kit lens. So that's an f3.5 to f5.6 lens. And this one is a weird one for me, in the sense that it's a fantastic kit lens, but of course it's not a fantastic overall lens because it's got a variable aperture. No one likes that. And it's definitely not God tier, because no kit lens is God tier really. Okay, I don't really know. So I'm definitely not going to put it in the Met or the would not recommend category, because it is decent. And for Lumix to have made a kit lens that is not a 24, it's a 20, which is really nice for vlogging, is really cool. It's lightweight, an f3.5 on a full frame sensor does look pretty good. So I'm going to put it in the would recommend. There you go. Let's move on. 24 to 105 f4. Oh, so any of the long-standing sort of viewers of this channel will know how much I raved about the 24 to 105. In fact, it was the first ever L-mount lens that I got. So when I had the S5, the 24 to 105 f4 was the first lens that I ever owned and ever used. And that lens got me through a lot of shoots, man. I mean, I shot a lot of stuff on the 24 to 105. The great things about this lens, of course, is that it has optical image stabilization. And when you pair that with the IBIS inside the Lumix cameras, it is rock steady. It is perfect for handheld shooting. I mean, you can even walk, or if not, do a light jog with this. But I did recently sell my copy of this because I just don't use it that much anymore. Oh man, this is really difficult. I'm gonna put it in fantastic for now, but that's subject to change. Okay, the 24mm f1.8. This is a basic lens in the sense that a 24mm f1.8 isn't exactly going to, you know, it's not going to make you cry in terms of how lovely and special it is. It's just a run-of-the-mill 24mm lens, but it does the job fantastically. It's a lens that I always use for these talking shots in my YouTube videos, so I'm using it right now. Therefore, fantastic. It goes fantastic. It doesn't go to God tier because it's just not exciting enough to be God tier for me. 2870 f2.8 God tier. Do not even care. That is a God tier lens. Hell to the yes with that lens. The 2870 f2.8 from Sigma is probably one of my most used lenses for the L mount. It comes everywhere with me, and I mean literally anywhere. Of course it is like a 2470 f2.8, but you sort of lose out on 4mm on the wide side, and it becomes a lot smaller and a lot more compact. And that is actually why I prefer the 2870 f2.8 over the 2470 by Sigma, and also probably over the 2470 S Pro from Panasonic, simply because of the size and the weight. And if I'm being honest with you guys, 4mm on the wide side doesn't really tend to stop me too much. I just take a step back. So yup, God tier lens. Okay, 35mm f1.8. This is probably my favorite photography lens to use. In a sense that 35mm, man, I mean, it's just the holy grail of focal lengths when it comes to street photography. So I'm gonna put you in God tier. Yeah, I like you, you're good. The 50mm f1.8, okay. Again, it's nothing to write home about. No one's gonna sort of, you know, sell their kidney in order to own this lens. It's just a basic lens. But for £429, it's a steal. So again, I'm sort of battling here because it's affordable, it's lightweight, optically it's very good, and it was the first of its kind in terms of being just your sort of run-of-the-mill prime lenses for the L mount. I'm gonna put it in God tier, you know. And for 400 quid, you'd be very hard pressed to find a better lens on any other camera system. So yeah, no, I'm confident with that. Locking it in, that is definitely God tier, because really the value for money proposition there is just fantastic. Okay, then the Sure 50mm t2.9 1.6 anamorphic squeeze. Oh, okay, so a little bit of a side story for you guys. I was sent out the 50mm t2.9 from Sure to test out and make a review on the channel. I took it with me to Tokyo during the S5II event, and it's a really cool lens, you know, it's anamorphic. A lot of guys love the way that anamorphic looks. The only issue with this lens is it's just so damn heavy, which means that bringing it out becomes a cumbersome task. A lot of the time I was feeling like I wanted to leave it in the hotel room just because it was so heavy and I didn't want to carry it around Tokyo for the whole day. So that for me makes it neither God tier or fantastic. It's gonna go in the meh category. I mean, it's sharp enough, yeah, fine. It's sharp and it has a cool cinematic look to it, but I would just not use this on a shoot. I could not see how I could use that lens on one of my corporate shoots. Okay, so staying on the topic of anamorphic lenses, now we have the 35mm t2.9 from Sure. I love this lens. I tested it recently. It's a really good lens. A really nice thing about this one compared to the 50mm t2.9 is the fact that they made it so much smaller and so much lighter, which means that taking this one out with you for a day out, please, you know, in fact, I'll pack 7 of them because they're so light. So this one wins in terms of the weight and stuff. It is quite expensive though, but then again, anamorphic lenses, you know, there's a premium to be had to, you know, be shooting anamorphic. I'm gonna go would recommend. Okay. The 7200 f2.8 S Pro from Panasonic. So we're moving back to the Panny boys. I got to try out this lens a little while ago, and image quality wise, it is absolutely fantastic. Just like any S Pro lens from Panasonic, it's sublime. But the thing weighs a ton, man. I mean, you need a gym membership just to have this lens. So just because of the weight, I'm gonna put it in the, this is really harsh and I feel really bad, but I'm putting this one in the category, just because it's, you know what, I've got a touch that would not recommend, and it might be really harsh. Okay, you know what, I'm gonna do a bit of moving around now. The 50mm 2.9 I would not recommend to people. I'm sorry, it just wouldn't be recommended. If someone said I want to get into anamorphic shooting, that's not a lens I'd recommend to use. The 7200 f2.8, the issue is I would recommend it because it is a very good quality lens. The only caveat, like I said, is just that it's really heavy. And while we're on topic of telephoto, we might as well smash these two out since they're the next ones. The 7200 f4 S Pro, I'm gonna go ahead and say I would recommend this. No, in fact, yeah, no. Would recommend. I would recommend this lens. Even though it's not an f2.8, instead it's an f4, it's just so much lighter. It's just easier to use. I can pack this in my bag and not feel like I'm carrying, you know, like a massive old brick, which is really good. And optically, it's an S Pro lens, so it's extremely sharp. So yeah, I'm happy with that, would recommend. Now the 70-300 from Panasonic, even though it's an f4.5 to 5.6, so it's a variable aperture lens, the size of that lens is very similar to the 70-200, so that's a tick in the box to me when we're talking about telephoto lenses. I was actually very fortunate to take this lens out with me to South Africa, where I got to do a few game drives. I got to take photos of loads of really, really awesome wildlife, and I had an absolute blast using this one. The images I took with it came out looking fantastic, and that focal range is also very, very good as well. So I'm gonna put this one in God tier, you know. I mean, for a variable aperture lens, I just bloody love it. And it is also a very affordable lens. Yeah, that one for me is a God tier lens. I think Panasonic did a fantastic job with that, because even at 5.6, f5.6, at 300mm, you're still getting so much compression that you can still get that blurry background. You can knock out the background a little bit, even at f5.6. So yeah, the 85, well, we have the 85mm left. So let's just blast through these ones. The 85mm f1.4 from Sigma, that was the first ever lens that I literally fangirled over when I tried it, so that just goes in God tier. It's heavy, it's quite expensive, but the image quality of that thing is just next level. For still shooting, that is the best portrait lens I have ever tried. So yep, that's God tier for me. And then the 85mm f1.8, I'm gonna put in would recommend. I'd probably say that out of the 85mm f1.4 from Sigma and the 85 1.8 from Panasonic, I'd probably reach for the 85mm at 1.8 from Panasonic more so because of the size and the weight. And image quality wise, it is really good, and it has, you know, very, very good focus breathing performance as well. But then again, price wise, it's also really reasonable at, like, what is it? It's under £600 here in the UK. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna move that to fantastic. So let's just recap here, since we have all the lenses on the graph now, or on the chart. 80mm f1.8 definitely belongs in God tier. 2870 f2.8 definitely God tier. 35mm f1.8, I'm going to demote that down to fantastic, because even though I'm really fond of that lens, it doesn't get enough use to make it a God tier lens for me. You know what, I think I'm pretty happy with this, you know. Again, I'd absolutely love to hear whether you put any of the lenses in different categories. I'd be really interested to hear how you guys would do this. And if you'd actually like to do this for yourself, I can make this available. Again, just let me know in the comments, and I'll make the one that I've made available along with all of the images that I've also made as well. And what might actually be quite cool as well is that if you do decide to do this tier list yourself, I'd love for you guys to put it into your order, take a screenshot, and then just send it to me, you know, somehow. Maybe, you know, find me on Instagram and send me it there, just because I'd be really interested to see what you guys think about, you know, this ranking. If you guys are interested in checking out my most recent L-mount lens review, then you can check that out here. And yeah, hopefully this channel will be a good resource for you to make a good buying decision for your next lens purchase.